of this Issaquah School Board meeting. We were in executive session, so we've already gavelled in. So the first thing to do is the Pledge of Allegiance. So if you'll please stand. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, next we have public comment. So this is an opportunity for the public to comment on items not already scheduled for discussion on the meeting agenda. So public comment will be allowed during specific agenda items that are scheduled for possible or anticipated board action. In this case today, it will be on OE14 emergency monitoring. I do not have a list, so I don't have anyone signed up for public comment at this time. Is there any from the audience or anyone from online? Okay. Next on the agenda is the approval of the consent agenda. The consent agenda is a meeting management tool by which the board can conduct regular business through a single vote. So I am looking for a motion on the consent agenda.
I move that we adopt the consent agenda.
I second.
Okay. With a motion and a second, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. Next is the establishment of the regular agenda. Are there any changes to the regular agenda?
No, there are no changes.
Okay, so first item on our general agenda is the report out on the school board town hall. So on May 12th, the school board conducted a town hall. It was well attended, so we do appreciate to the community members who came out to that. And so wanted to get feedback from the board. Director Gallinger did send out kind of a summary of topics and input, and so wanted to take this opportunity for the board to discuss. Don't all be shy.
It's Maelstrom.
Director Taylor.
I will start. It's been a while now. It's been 3 weeks ago, I think. So I would just say that, I was just very much encouraged by the turnout that we had at the town hall. It is, I think it was the biggest turnout of one of these events since I've been on the board, which was fantastic. And that just really allowed us to have an opportunity to discuss a whole range of topics with the folks in the room. And I'm curious, I have to remember, I'm curious as to if we promoted that town hall in a different way or something along those lines as to why we had so many people there. But again, like I said, I think there was 30 people in the room. And we spent well over 2 hours with folks and had that opportunity then to really kind of deep dive into some subjects. So I was certainly appreciative of the turnout and hope that we continue to see our community engaging with us moving forward like that.
Anyone else?
I can go.
Director Coyne.
I'll second what Director Taylor said, and again appreciated the opportunity to engage with the community. It's not something we're able to do directly in a board meeting, so it's nice to have that direct engagement with the folks that were there with us. I think it was also a good opportunity for us just to remind the community that we are parents of existing schools or kids in the school district, or we've had students who've graduated out, and I think it's good for them to say, hey, we've had some of the same frustrations and we hear you. And so that dialogue back and forth was good. One thing I'm going to just mention that's been kind of weighing on me, and I don't know if others had this takeaway too. So we hosted this at Issaquah Middle School. Director Taylor and I had an opportunity later that week to then do a tour of Issaquah Middle School, and I think both of us mentioned this, and I'll at least speak for myself, but there was a parent who was sharing a concern around discipline that evening. And I think I lost sight of the fact that it actually didn't occur at Issaquah Middle School, but we were at that campus. And I think I just by default thought it happened there. And I want to just clarify that for other folks that may have also had that level of, maybe were potentially confused. Wanted to note that because that incident did not occur at Issaquah Middle School, and I came away that night thinking it did, and so it was good to have that clarification after the fact. So those are my thoughts.
my computer is not working, so I'm switching to my phone.
Well, I can, while you're trying to get that to work, Director Gallinger, I'll just briefly talk about the top items that were discussed or the questions, because we really posed questions to the community. It was their time to come to us to really ask questions, to find out more, to tell us their insights. So there's concerns around the budget, and especially at this point, we were still evaluating what was happening with the legislature. So they had wrapped up their work. How was it being impacted? Discussion about addressing overcrowding and the new high school that was proposed and discussed a couple of board meetings ago. School violence did come up and was talked about. This one, which I absolutely agree and understand, disconnect for what school board messages, what the school board messages and what the community hears. And I think that's something over the past year that I've really recognized is something that we need to work on, better communicating with our community. Finding out why students and families leave the Issaquah School District. The school board having a better understanding of inclusive practices and potentially attending individual education plan meetings for students receiving special services. Our cell phone policies and implementation around that, still a lot of questions. College preparation, helping students with the application process, business courses, financial math. Really kind of how the board conducts its work, how do we determine what our topics are? And then another one around opportunities for students to participate in sports was kind of at the bottom of the list. But it was very robust discussion, and really appreciated the opportunity to share our perspective with the community and to hear from them on a variety of topics. And so that was, it's good for us. And that's one way we're staying connected with our community. But how do we do that better? And I do think around communications, and as we look at the strategic plan around communication, really understanding, I think I've mentioned this before, us learning, it's often been the district and the board tells people what we want you to know rather than finding out what is it you want to know and how can we then share that in a better, more manageable way. So I think there's definitely work to do there.
Yeah, I would just say that because we don't walk in with any agenda, there is the freedom to move along according to what people want to talk about. So after we did the hearing what people wanted and then talk through the priorities, which you just mentioned, then we got to ask some questions and follow up to let people sort of weigh in on things for like, how did they want to receive information from the district? How would they recommend that we improve our email communications? What social media platforms they prefer that we use? And then there were 7 comments about what suggestions you have to improve future town halls. And I'll just read the 7. It was take meeting minutes to share with people who can't attend due to other commitments. Thank you for hosting these events. They're appreciated. Share a brief description of the types of topics from a recent town hall and possibly do an article that can be translated on what a town hall is. Explain what they are all about so people know what to expect. It is a more informal format than a board meeting. Include who you want to come, community members, parents, staff, and students. Shorter intros, get to the questions earlier. Allow for some two-way dialogue since official board meetings don't allow for that. Appreciate your time and effort. Probably should describe the process for the evening and perhaps set larger goals for attendance. Reaching out to specific organizations. Was the PTSA Council asked to push out information? This would be an avenue to expand engagement.
Right. And I think we can take a lot of those things into consideration for the next time, especially it didn't even dawn on me like, oh, we say we're having this town hall and then, well, what is that? What do you mean by that? What's the format of that going to look like? The fact that it is more informal. So again, we were communicating what we wanted them to know, not what they needed to know in order to fully participate. So again, it was a great example of that. But I really appreciate the time of school board members, my fellow board members coming out and meeting with the community. Yeah, I think it's such a great opportunity for us to connect. And we do those more than once a year usually. So I think keeping on our current schedule. And I love that they're like, there aren't enough people here. And we were so excited because the previous one had 0 people attend. So, so thank you to the community members that came out and continue to want to reach out. Next on the agenda is works in progress.
Great, thank you. So last week I was in Washington, D.C. for a strategy convening with about 20 sitting superintendents and state chiefs from across the country and all parts of the country to hear updates about the current federal climate, especially related to the dismantling of the U.S. Department of Education and executive orders affecting public education. And I wanted to share a couple of highlights with the community at this point in time. I have 3 main highlights, which are that there will be continued challenges in the courts to all these various executive orders. So that moves at the pace of how courts move. And there will continue to be challenges if new executive orders arise that are in conflict with either state laws or policies and current practices. And for example, the US DOE, it's established in a certain way and would take a movement within Congress to be able to actually change that in the form that it currently is. We are looking at the budget outlook because there were some reductions in the federal bill that did actually also get approved last week through Congress. And we should be preparing for a 2 to 4 year budget outlook. Typically, we really look at the next year, but we will need to start doing multi-year planning with the assumption that federal dollars will continue to decline or go away. And this assumption will lead to a more conservative approach to forecasting and modeling our revenue. And as we look at year over year, it's important to do that because the cumulative effect of that loss on a year over year basis is also, as you look 2 to 3 years out, has a deeper impact. And to note, it's fiscally responsible for us to move towards a multi-year outlook at this point in time because federal funding does comprise 2.4% of our current budget, which is about $9 million. And then as we kind of talked a lot about how, well, where will decisions start to live? Where will the responsibility live for supporting education? And that will, fall more to states and more to local communities. And we, are already starting to see that with even changes to our legislation this past year. I thought that would be helpful to share with the community. Speaking of legislative updates from the state, we did see some, incredible work that happened. There are supports for our districts. That is an area where public education was prioritized. And we are still waiting for guidance, to be finalized for how we then actually utilize those inputs into our budget. So we will have that next update for the board and the community on June 10th, but directionally we know where we're going. And the first is that the local levy authority was increased for capacity. And so that is, likely a gain. The full year effect of that would not happen until 26 to 27 school year. And that is also dependent on, a replacement levy that is coming up for consideration. And efforts for that we will start talking about in the fall. For special education services and funding, which was a top priority for all the various education affiliated groups over the past year, there are some, notes to have here. One is that we're also providing students who qualify for services through age 22. And there's also a new multiplier for how some of the calculations are done to support those costs. And as a reminder, even though that is an increase for our district and for students, it only offsets part of the additional costs that are already being paid for out of local dollars that we take on. Another important, one of the big three topics, the second of the big three that came to fruition was material supplies and operating cost. And there's a modest increase in that allocation. And again, this is an area where we're also seeing increased cost as well. So it's helping us keep pace with those increased costs. And there's some additional actual categories for reporting requirements that will fall to the district to be able to continue to do as we receive that funding. Transition to kindergarten, there was a lot of talk about that. We know that our early learning work has been really successful in Issaquah. We've made steps year over year to expand access and opportunity for our youngest learners to be able to get a jump on their educational experience here within Issaquah. And we're grateful that we can maintain that work because there was no growth or expansion, and districts are being capped to the levels as they had been in prior years. So the level we are this year will be the level we can continue on in the future. To note, it is now transitional to kindergarten is now noted as a formal grade level, but it's not part of the basic education allocation. And then districts are receiving one-time funding. That's a one-time apportionment. And again, that's welcome, and it's a modest increase. So as I said, we'll have an update at the next board meeting on our budget, incorporate these inputs into our budget proposal in detail. And as a reminder, given the federal context, while these increases in one-time funding sources are very helpful, they're only offsetting the local revenue we've allocated for services. And also, as we look at increasing expenses that are hitting everyone across the board, we still see that expense level outpacing even the increases that we've received from our hardworking legislators. And we also know that with the potential loss of some federal funding, this will help backfill and buffer, and that we also consider that this will support the projected decline that we have in our fund balance that we've talked about in the past. So my summary takeaway is that we do not overreact to all of the climate things that are happening, but we do not want to underplan. So I have more financial updates, but I want to pause there. So today, yesterday, we did have our exit conference with the state auditor's office, and President Moraldo and Director Coyne participated on behalf of the board in conjunction with our district business and finance team. And as a reminder, while we are in 2025, the audit covers the time period of September 2023 through August 2024. And I do want to note that there were no significant deficiencies or material weaknesses identified in our financial reporting. We did have a finding in our federal grants under the Child Nutrition Cluster Program funding, and that will be addressed through our ongoing work with staff training and new protocols. And then any prior findings or issues that have been surfaced in the past have been fully corrected and addressed, and that was acknowledged in the exit conference and appreciated. And so there are no further concerns lingering. So I think we show a track record of when something is identified that we take steps to address it, and do that fully and faithfully. We found this an opportunity to have good feedback and hold ourselves accountable to taxpayer dollars, especially as we can always strengthen our internal controls. And as a reminder, the state auditor office is an independent entity, and they do want to review areas of risk so that we can get ahead of any issues and be proactive. The auditor team shared appreciation for our team in the collaboration and attention to effective and ethical stewardship of taxpayer dollars. And now that we're back on track without delays to the audit timelines, these audits will be included in a timely fashion for our operational expectations monitoring, especially for operational expectation 1, as well as 5. And as a reminder, since we moved to the coherent governance model and the prior model of policy governance, we did have internal and external for OE1 and OE5, but now we're just going to consolidate those and keep them streamlined through our current coherent governance model. So we do have a lot of controls and governing bodies looking at our financial reporting and our use of federal grant dollars. And as a side note, we want to just let you know, and my team, I think, would really want me to say this out loud, is that we do take pride in having, clean financial reporting audits. That's really important. That's a holistic review to our financial reports. And as we continue to right-size our budget to our enrollment and to student needs, this is a really notable thing that's positive for us when, frankly, the region is facing difficult financial times. And with more districts who are making significant and deep cuts to their budgets, which is, as you've seen in the news, resulting in significant staff reduction, as well as potentially even more severe accountability measures in place by the state. So I wanted to say thank you to our finance and operations team. It's really an honor to work with you and navigate these difficult waters. We've had really great work, and this is the end of the year, so there's fun celebrations that happen and awards and recognitions. We've had a couple of things that have been happening, and there's so many, it's hard to name all of them, but a few that I want to share today, which is from our students, we had some great results in sports over the past week. We have every high school now boasts a single state champion in tennis, and Liberty won the state fast pitch competition. And then we also see incredible work from our staff being recognized too. We have so many student athletes competing, and we haven't had as much representation in our athletic leagues from the leadership level that governs our sports. And so Jordan Frost, who is our district-wide athletic director, was elected as the president of the KingCo League. And Jordan Halstead at Issaquah High was elected Sea King rep. And we have Matt Stewart elected as Sea King president. So it's great to see our staff also representing in a way that also, upholds our standards of excellence in sports, but also represents and looks out for our students who are competing. Our communications team continues their tradition of receiving recognition and awards from NSPRA. Robert Miller won the video honorable mention for our 2024 School Innovation Tour, which he partnered with Julia Bamba on. Jared Putney, Sun Win, Julie Bamba, and Jennifer Fitzgerald won in the category of Handbook Guide Award of Merit for the 2025 Course Catalog Guide. Now, that seems maybe an interesting category for many people, but frankly, our course guide catalog is quite large, and we've really significantly taken steps to increase format, but more importantly, the content is important to note that, and that was part of the strategic plan, something that the board early on when I came on board a couple of years ago said, hey, listen, we would like to see more consistency in how courses, if they're titled the same, are they actually the same in content? So it's more than just the technical and formatting boost, it's also improving the consistency of those experiences across the high schools through calibration. This week, I had a great visit to 2 Plateau Elementary Schools, Cascade Ridge and Cedar Trails, and appreciated the opportunities to speak with teachers and paraprofessionals about the great progress for our students and the fun celebrations. But I'll remind you all, learning is still happening and it's very robust. And there is some really positive signs from the new literacy curriculum that was implemented this year, and that's leading to strong results for our students. I think that I heard and I saw actually a lot of the materials being used by students in their choice reading time, as well as heard several examples of individual students really taking off in their reading and writing progress. And specifically, as we consider the role that reading has as a foundation and gateway to learning other content areas, it's really promising to see and hear that that's working well. So special thanks to Principals Jennifer Saline and Tara Coyle for hosting me this week. And in closing, in the spirit of celebration season, I have to share something about President Moraldo. Today, we had a great end-of-year celebration with the PTSA, PTA Council, and school leadership leaders across all of our school sites and principals. And this is an annual event where they're giving out Golden Acorn Awards. And so in addition to the affirmation and positive examples of the hard work, effort, and impact on our school communities, our family volunteers and leaders have every day, there's a special Golden Acorn Award given to our very own board president, Marnie Moraldo. President Moraldo was awarded an honorary life membership PTA recognition for her 16 years of board service as a board member and then many more as a PTA leader. And this is especially poignant as this is President Moraldo's final year of service to the board, and she's leaving with a legacy behind her and in front of her that will allow us to continue to fight for all students. All means all, and that's all means, and uphold a level of excellence in all that we do and more. So thank you and congratulations. And we can do hand wave.
Right. Thank you. Next on our agenda is a time I am really excited about, an update on our student rep program. So before we get into introductions for our new, I just want to recognize our students that will be moving forward, no longer with us, who have served their 2 years, some of which are graduating, some of which are going into their senior year. But I wanted to recognize Deshita Jane from Skyline, Aditi Marahali from Liberty, Naomi Wu from Issaquah High, and Hava Alcorn from Gibson Eck. We truly thank you for all you've done, really transforming this and really setting a high bar of expectation of what we can do. Student reps are so important for us to connect with the student body. And so thank you so much for your time here. And Krish and Ava are here, as well as, there's the T, as well as Milo. So we're excited that you guys are going to be stepping up into the leadership position. And so with that, I am going to hand it off to Marcel because we have made some selections. Oh,
There we go. Better. Okay. Marcel Hauser, Senior Advisor and Strategy Lead. I believe Director Coyne's going to lead us through and announce the reps, but also we'll celebrate the reps that are remaining here. So I'll pass it to you, Director Coyne.
Yes, sounds good. Well, thank you. And I get the honor of introducing our new student reps for the upcoming school year. And before I jump into that, I want to just speak to kind of on behalf of the board, and again, thank our graduating reps for all of their great work, and just want to note that we take and the input that you provide us very seriously, and appreciate your active engagement during all of our board meetings. And I know I shared this during our student rep reception, but the 5 of us were parents. Sometimes people forget that. They just see us as board directors up here on at the dais here. But we enjoy working with kids. We all have kids within same age range as all of you. And I think what is also important to us too, it's beneficial, but we only know what we know. So we have students in certain schools, certain feeder patterns. And so to be able to have the broader view across all of our high schools is very helpful when we're determining the decisions that we make on behalf of the district. So again, want to thank all of you for that input. Let me just talk a little bit about the student rep recruitment process, and then we'll go into announcing our new reps. But announcements of the opportunity really went out via multiple channels in February and March. We did site visits at Liberty and Gibson Eck. We also had a message on Canvas, printed materials at all high schools, school bulletins, and then district social media accounts as well. This led to a robust number of applicants. We had 57 applicants, 9th and 10th graders. Again, just as a reminder for folks, we look to have, as President Meralda mentioned too, we look to have one sort of senior upperclassman rep from each of our 4 high schools. And then we have a junior rep, which would generally be a 9th or 10th grader. And so having those individuals come in and then be mentored by that more senior rep, we've seen some good success from that. So in terms of the interview process, so interviews were conducted at each of our 4 high schools, which by a panel that consisted of 2 board members, 2 staff members, and 2 students. So with that, I want to go ahead and announce our new board reps for the 25-26 school year. And I think we're going to have them come up so we can get a photo once I announce their names.
Yep. Once we announce names, you can come up and join me here. Then we'll get a photo up. Parents, feel free to get up when your students get up to get a photo as well.
Sounds good. All right. We'll start with Rex Garner from Issaquah High School. You want me to keep going or wait? Keep going. Okay. And then Leah Delip from Liberty High School. Want to come up? And then V-Day Jane from Skyline High School. And we will, at our next board meeting, we'll make the formal announcement of the individual that we selected at Gibson Eck.
We also are going to take some photos with Jared. We'll be able to share those as well.
Yeah.
All right, we're ready. 1, 2, 3.
Yeah, we always allow parents to take pictures if you'd like to, but the other thing is we would like you to then do the march of the handshaking so we can all welcome you to as a student rep to the board.
Yeah.
We're excited to have you. We're very happy to have you. Oh, the other student, yes, definitely the other student reps.
Well, congratulations again to our new board reps. Just to close out on our outgoing reps and particularly, the 4 that are graduating. I just want to note, I know Director Mullings is not able to be here tonight. I know we've had conversation around this before, but really reflecting on the work that you've all done. And I guarantee you at some point in your life, probably at some point in the near future, you'll be in an interview, you'll be in a class, and someone will ask you to reflect on an experience. And this is one that I hope you think about selecting when you're asked that question. So I think just to pull out some of the things that you all worked on: policy creation, policy adoption, advocacy for your peers at school, advocacy and really providing a voice for the youngest members of our community, because our students have a voice, and particularly those under the age of 18, and you were here representing them. And so we thank you for that. Again, hope you reflect on that going forward. I know you all have bright futures ahead. So thank you again.
President Moraldo, may I ask the senior reps to share where they're going, plans for next year briefly?
Absolutely.
So if senior reps, you want to share?
Sure. All right. I'll have the Alcorn outgoing rep from Gibson Neck, and in January I'll be leaving for an 18-month Latter-day Saint mission. And then when I come home, I'll go to BYU Idaho to explore education and ed policy.
Hi, Naomi Wu, outgoing rep from Issaquah High School. In August, I'll be heading over to George Washington University in Washington, D.C. to be studying journalism and mass communications with a potential minor in international politics.
So next, Aditi Marihali, senior rep from Liberty High School. In the fall, I'm excited to head to Brown University, where I'll be studying computational neuroscience with potential interest in public policy. So.
Thank you so much. And we are so excited for those of you who are moving on to greater things, and for our incoming student reps. We will take action on this item at the next board meeting. We have just some final things that we need to do to be ready for that action, but very, very excited about that. Great. Thank you. Next on our agenda is the capital projects update. So I will pass it off to the superintendent.
Great. So as Martin Turney and Tom Mullins make their way up to the podium, I just want to share this is great to sort of continue to see our progress on our 2018 and 2022 approved dollars for capital projects, but also to start to fold in the planning for the next high school. And so, that work is progressing. We've had one meeting with the city of Issaquah. The tone and tenor was very helpful to work within the current permit and to figure out what our next steps will be within the current permit, which we have extended.
Good evening, everyone. Tom Mullins, Director of Capital Projects. Do our capital projects update for the month. Going to quickly review the 2018 and 22 critical repairs levy projects, and then do an update on the Capital Projects Oversight Committee, and the new high school. So 2018, we're closing in on the end of the school year, and that's when we hope to have all these projects done, the beginning of next school year. And complete 28, we have substantially complete 4, which means we're down to paperwork, those type of things, wrapping them up. We have in process 10 projects, which we would have wrapped up, and there's still 2 future projects for HVAC commissioning that were put on hold by the board in the past. 22 levy projects. We have one substantially, one complete, one substantially complete, and 12 in process, and 1 future. Capital Projects Oversight Committee, our next meeting, which would be number 2, is Tuesday, June 17th in the evening. We've updated the website with all the Oversight Committee related information. It's on the Capital Projects webpage. And the committee continues to review the monthly budget status reports and Capital Projects website and any other information that's out there related to their purview. And new high school update. We're still, the process of making the revisions to the existing project continues. We're working through the redesign elements. We had an initial meeting with the city of Issaquah, which was very positive, very well received. Everyone seemed to be on the same page. Our target construction date is still March 1st of 26, getting started next year as early as we can. And the expected opening date is still remains August of 27. Any questions?
Mr. Mullins, we first clarified that the community, the Capital Projects Oversight Committee update, is that open to the public as well?
Oh, yes,
Okay.
that's a public meeting. We have seats for the public if they'd like to show up.
Any questions? Director Taylor.
I had a few questions as I was reviewing these materials. First question, out of the 18 levy, just curious, why are the Challenger and Newcastle HVAC systems moved to as needed?
Those were,
Or had they been in the past?
yes, they've been there
Okay.
for quite a while. It was directed by the board in a previous, it's been probably a year and a half ago, to keep those kind of future in reserve for
Okay.
if those projects needed work done on them as they were originally intended at the levy. And we reviewed those projects and they didn't need it at this time. We reviewed specifically for those retro commissioning projects.
Mhm.
So we were told to just hold on those for now.
Okay. And then just one other question. I noted the savings through the grants for the high school Clean Buildings Act audits.
Yep.
Great. Curious though, how much money are we looking at in those savings? Do we know, just ballpark?
So the 3 audits that were done, Skyline and Liberty are being covered by an OSPI grant, which is a per square foot grant. And those will be fully covered. And I think the total between those 2 is a little over $100,000
Okay.
for those 2. The Issaquah High School IGA or investment grade audit is being covered by a Department of Commerce energy efficiency grant that we're doing that includes the investment grade audit and then some energy efficiency measures that are being implemented in and being done right now, which is more or less a retro commissioning of Issaquah High School.
Oh,
So, and that project could be, it's going to be something shy of $1 million total. We've got 15% responsibility in that, and the Commerce will cover the balance. So,
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yep.
Any other questions? Director Gallinger.
Can you go back to slides 4 and 5? When it says future and it lists 1 and then 2 respectively, does that mean that's all we have to anticipate? Or does that mean future as in like, this is in my next 12 months and then there's still more that are on the docket that I haven't even put onto the,
So the way the 22 works is there are 15 projects total.
okay,
And one of them is the lead testing in water, which we have not had to tap yet. So we're just keeping that as a future project. And then once we have to tap that budget, we'll move it into in process.
okay, so that's every project for 2022 is listed right there.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yep.
Dr. Coyne.
Thank you for for presenting this information. I think a couple things that I want to highlight, and actually on slide 4, and this is just a quick note to community members who are asking, where do I get this information? How do I see how the district is spending these funds? There's a link there, capital projects department page. So that information, I don't know if you maybe could just elaborate on that. The critical repairs project tracking documents are out there.
Yes. You can go in, we have an actual tracking document that shows all of the 2018 and 22 levy projects on the capital projects web page, original budgets, revised budgets and expenditures on all the way out. You can look at it that way. There's also one pagers, what we call the project one pager, which gives month by month updates, shows budget changes, shows status of project, and then activities that happened during that month. And there's also capital projects oversight committee. I'd love to,
And just to reiterate again, all of that information you just mentioned is public.
is very
Yes,
public.
thank you. I just want to mention,
yep.
and then with the Capital Projects Oversight Committee, I think the superintendent mentioned this too, in terms of information that's shared, discussed with that committee, that's accessible too
Yes.
to the community.
Yes, it
Okay.
is.
Just want to make sure folks, again, if you're listening, know that information is available.
Yep.
Because I hear from too many members of the community who say, I don't know how the district is spending these dollars.
Yep.
This is where you would find it.
Absolutely.
Yep. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. I think that with that, we'll move on to the next agenda item, which is the structure of schools.
Great. As Martin Turney is joined by Dr. Dana Bailey at the podium, I will share 2 things which I think are important to preface this update. At the discussion point that we had this last conversation, it was February, and more work has transpired since then. So I want to be very clear that with that next high school, that addresses the primary need of that conversation in February. So we are moving forward, right, with planning to start to break ground and fulfill our commitment and promise to taxpayers from the 2016 bond and the 2022 levy to make headway with easing overcrowding and getting a next high school underway. And it will be different, but it will be getting underway. So that's number 1. And number 2 is that as a result of that, we are not recommending at this point in time that we continue the conversation on a change to the structure of schools in the immediate future. So the questions that come up to me often, in the community, I'm sure that board members get that as well, is are you moving forward with a 10, 12 campus across every single high school? So the answer is no. So we'll go through the content, but I want to just lead with that direct headline on both categories that we are moving forward with planning for our next high school to address the core problem of overcapacity or overcrowding, and we're not recommending changes to our structure of the schools at this point in time. With that, I will pass it over to Dr. Bailey.
Thank you very much. Purpose of our update today, as previously stated, was to confirm our plans going forward and give a high-level update about what the school district and plans are in place to build on the property that we have. The previously shared options, as just stated, of repurposing a current middle school to build for a 9th grade campus for either the district or 1 school or 2 schools, changing the school levels to K-6, 7, 9, and 10, 12, and double shifting at high schools, having some high school students start at a very early time and some students start a little bit later, we're not in favor of the community feedback. The community feedback did not share that was the plan that they were on board with, and also represented quite a lot of cost, increased transportation needs, and impacts across the whole system to really respond to the high school overcrowding issue. So a recommendation officially is that there is no immediate no immediate next steps on previously considered options. For the reasons I just stated, and the new high school plans will provide relief for overcrowding that does align with the long-term plans for the district and also the innovation that we so desire.
And so this is kind of a reminder in taking on these large structural changes. They do take a lot of time. They have a lot of complexity. Some of the recent recent being 7 years ago, but you know, it took months to just conduct the committee meetings. There's months before you get to that point and some time afterwards. So these are long endeavors. Just wanted to remind folks of that. Additional context, I know the superintendent mentioned, we do have existing funding. The community voted on this. We are going to be committed to fulfilling our promise to getting that high school built and easing capacity. And then, of course, on April 10th, the board said go forward with that, planning to do that. So again, just a couple highlights. I know we've talked about the high school already once tonight, but this would bring in about 650 student capacity. It would include road work on 228th. It fits within the available funding, as we mentioned, and that start date of construction still on March of 2026.
So the building itself and that project moving forward is exciting, but what is even more exciting is what is potentially possible inside the building. So what happens inside the building would, we would expect a large community involvement to help make those plans and drive those things going forward. So talking about the first grade levels that would go to this school, what the school identity, the name, school colors, mascots, the athletic program and the extracurriculars, the schedule, the transportation, the learning model, the curriculum, what they decide to do with this school, the college and career readiness elements that might be present in this innovative space, how advisory, mentoring, other things might happen, the student leadership, we'd have a new ASB, and also, and very importantly, the future vision. So you start in the place that you think allows you to do the growth you want to do going forward. So these would be all things that would be planned together with the community and the students as this goes forward. And we are here to hear your discussion and answer any questions.
And I think I saw at the bottom that this community engagement would start in the fall. Is that what you said?
Yes.
Okay.
Good catch.
Yeah. Director Taylor.
Just want to make one statement too. I think at the time in February, there was also some discussion amongst the board about potentially rebounding kids into Liberty High School that are currently in a different feeder pattern. Just want to be very explicit that that option is also, there will be no action on that issue
Correct.
either. So I didn't see that listed. I want to be very express about that.
Milo.
With the community engagement starting in fall of 2025, do you guys already have a plan on how to get that? And just a cool idea that I think would be amazing, with the school identity, like the name and the school colors and maybe even the mascot, what I think would be really cool is to get current like elementary or middle schoolers to pitch in their ideas or what they think, because those are going to be the kids going there. And I think that would be a really cool experience. So if you were thinking of like getting all kinds of opinions, I think that's a great idea.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
Any other questions or discussion items? Hearing none, thank you for this. I think it is the most important thing is to let the public know that all those options that we talked about, we are banking on. We have funds, we have lands, and we will build. Okay, great. Thank you so much. And everybody said this was going to be a long meeting. The next item on the agenda is personal technology use of cell phones. So this is coming back from the last discussion.
Yep. So this is an important topic to bring forward again because we had some outstanding things that we had not yet determined around some of the expectations for where we will where we will codify these expectations moving forward. So we do have some information on that, and we just had a more informal conversation. So we're sort of putting it back in front of the community and the board for a more formal discussion and update here. And we do plan to communicate that both in regulation and procedure and in handbooks that will be at every single school that with a minimum level of expectations. And so, Dr. Bailey, thank you for staying up here and the seamless transition of colleagues here at the podium, and I'll let you take it away.
Thank you. Thank you, Superintendent and School Board. And thank you to the entire executive team who has assisted in bringing this work together. To update you on our progress since our last presentation, we appreciate this opportunity to share. One of the purposes of this regulation and policy is to attend to the mental health and wellness of our students, in the same time ensure that every student has access to technology that they need to be a strong learner in our schools. The regulation is an iterative process, and we have a few final pieces coming together, and I'm happy to share what our last final piece is that we're in discussion about. But the key highlights do remain the same. The personal technology will be limited during learning time to reduce exposure and interruptions created by social media pressures and to encourage interpersonal dialogue. This policy has a developmental approach with more independence as students get older, with the intention that they are learning through direct instruction how to safely and appropriately use this powerful technology. The handbook language going forward is the same as presented last week, with elementary language here, off and away, which is currently what is in the handbooks and in place. And we hope that it builds these healthy habits early, that they prioritize students talking to each other. Middle school, devices are silenced and stowed away during class, including the hallway times when class is in session. And this supports the growing self-management and transitions. So last time we were here, I was lensing what was happening in practice right now, forgetting that the handbooks went to print last May, so about this time last year. So not all of the middle school handbooks had this language in it because they had already been to print, but this is the middle school common language for all 6 of the middle schools. And the high school has a little bit more freedom, but it's similar to middle school, but allows a provision for some use during non-instructional time. And the hope is that it prepares students one more step towards adult responsibility. This regulation and the corresponding policy is an example of our strong Tier 1 practice, clearly communicated expectations, and next year's district leaders will reflect on and refine this work going forward. And we are here to answer any questions and listen to your discussion.
Questions or comments?
I would just say I appreciate leading with the why, and our why is for student well-being. I think sometimes that gets lost in this being about a control or maturity, and this is really about the evidence being really clear about how it impacts students' mental health. So I really appreciate leading off with that, because I think that's the message we need to continue to share with our parents and families. I mean, I would love to see us go even stronger to say we discourage elementary students from having phones and create a community culture where we don't need our kids to have them. And yet, has there been work to align the office staff and access to phones in the office? Because part of the problem is our middle and high schools offices close like right away. And so if we want to have our students not on phones, like part of the feedback we hear is, well, I can't go in the office and call home because the office closes like shortly after the bell rings. So I think part of the problem is if there's a bus issue or there's like any like a sports practice change or whatever, parents and students feel like they have to have a device by the time we get to middle school, and they shouldn't feel that way, but they feel that way because of the lack of access to a phone in our building that's actually readily available for students to use. So as we do this, I think we need to also make sure that there's actually access across our district for that.
Noted.
Director Coyne.
And I would agree, Director Gallinger, with what you said. I think the struggle would be, though, if we offer up access in the office, I doubt many of those students would know the numbers to call. Those are saved in a cell phone. I mean, let's just be honest. I mean, it's not like when we were in school and you memorized your, I mean, I still know remember my childhood phone number. That's just what we did. We don't do that anymore. And so I think we have to understand that. I think that is why there's the need at elementary. I did want to ask though, because I do appreciate this call out for student autonomy and increasing over time. And since our last board meeting, I know I've had some questions that have been asked by members of the community saying, are we giving too much of that freedom at middle school? Are we going like elementary, all of a sudden we're giving too much? Should we tighten that up? And I know this is already pretty much set, but I don't know, maybe just Dr. Billy, some perspective on the freedom that's given between elementary and middle.
Sure. So as a dyed-in-the-wool middle school person, I think middle schoolers beginning 6th grade to end of 8th grade are in just that little window of time really growing. So having a policy that is nimble, that schools can respond to their school community. We do have middle schools already that have off and away for the whole day, and other schools that have off and away during most of the day. So the last comment was intended to say, we're going to listen and learn next year. Others are going to listen and learn next year and see what the middle school culture feedback is, because we can get feedback from students through both of our surveys. Next year, you'll get the Health Youth and also the student survey to see how they are changing and how comfortable and safe they feel at school due to these changes.
That's great. Thank you.
Director Taylor.
I just have a clarification question, and this could very well be just, I don't get it, but let me ask. So the middle school proposal here is devices silenced and stowed away during class. And then we say for high school, non-instructional time, some provision. Isn't that just time outside of class? That's where I don't get the.
So glad you asked. So in middle school, it would hallway time, like passing time would be off limits. High schoolers would be allowed to check their phones during passing time. And they do.
Yes.
Don't they? They do.
Yeah. Okay, so that's the key difference, is that 5 minutes in between class. Okay, thank you.
Director Callinger.
And then can you clarify on the last sentence for both middle and high school? It says this policy extends to hallways and common areas while class is in session. So what does that mean?
Sure.
Meaning, like, because all of our classes are in session because we
Right.
don't have the
So-
luxury of having space.
Yep.
that's
It is
separate.
actually about interrupting the habit of asking to go to the restroom or your locker and taking your phone with you and checking your phone while your class is happening. So it's not about any class in the school happening, but if you have a class you are to be in and you have permission from your teacher to not be there, you also shouldn't be on your phone.
Then maybe in the handbook language should be say, well, the student's class is in session.
Sure.
Otherwise, to me, it was confusing. Otherwise, there's always class in session.
Yes, Naomi.
Might have a question after me, but I'm gonna ask something different. I wanted to ask about discipline, because I think at the last school board meeting, we discussed the different approaches to what the process is when a student is not following the handbook policy on cell phone use, and we learned that not all of our schools have a uniform like way to approach that. Is that discipline policy or instruction included in the handbook now?
No,
No.
the principals and the school leaders will be responsible for the discipline that happens. It won't be in the regulation or in the policy.
Okay, so it won't be uniform within all of our schools.
I can't say that it won't be uniform, but it's not going to be in the policy.
Got it. Thank you.
And Krish.
Okay, I want to start off by saying I am very proud to say I have both my parents' phone numbers memorized. But I feel like piggybacking on some of the things that were said, at least for me and a couple of my friends, I know that a phone is just, so much more like prioritized because of like that ease of access, right? And especially because at least my parents, I don't think they've ever, called the office to relay like the information for me. I mean, for them, it's such a big like rapid change. And I think it's very easy for us to see that. Like, it's like, oh, it's just like, instead of like texting my son, it's just like, oh, calling the office. But I feel like it's a lot bigger switch than like it just might seem. And then I also have a question on the language. So the middle and high school handbook language is the same, but the policy is slightly different. So is that like conveyed, or maybe I'm like misunderstanding it, or?
Can you, let me see if I can find out where you are.
I'm on slide 7 and 8.
Thank you. I'll have to look into that.
Okay, and then I have one quick question about discipline and enforcement, kind of piggybacking off what Naomi said. So I feel like the policies are like been pretty effectively implemented, as in like, especially because it's like been one of the more like recent newer years. But I have a question about the enforcement of it specifically, because you mentioned in the high schools, right, the policy being extending to the hallways as well. And maybe this is just my perspective or like my peers' perspective, but I mean, is there like, how does enforcement work in that sense? Because I feel like the policy is outlined, but there's not a lot of enforcement. It's like a lot of just trust on, students following the policy.
So the building principals and administration would be responsible for setting those expectation, or not, this sets the expectation, and the building principals would be responsible for creating how they are going to ensure fidelity to the rule.
Okay, thank you.
So the one thing that we have that's just come back from legal has to do with the law and recording someone without their permission. And so I'm not dragging my feet, but I'm taking care to make sure that we have that highlighted to the right amount in all of the policy language and the student language, because everybody does it, doesn't mean it's right and doesn't mean it's legal. So we're really wanting to find student-friendly language that makes that really clear, that it is not lawful to record someone, again, without their express permission, either audio or visual. So that is the last remaining piece that we want to find where it fits best and make sure the language is crystal clear to students and the system.
Can that notice be at the entrances of all of our buildings as well, including this one? So like in every hospital entrance, in every room, it actually has that. I'm not saying you need to go to that degree, but I think that is something, because we want the adults also to adhere to that.
Thank you for bringing this back. And I do think that, did you have? Oh, I didn't realize. Go ahead, Hava first, and then Ava.
This is less about the policy, but the key highlight on slide 8 about high school, talking about prepares students for adult responsibility and balanced digital habits. I think it would be beneficial to have resources available to students in high school about healthy cell phone use and habits and building those habits, because just like gradually giving more freedom isn't always, I would say, doesn't actually count as preparation, but making sure that you are providing that those resources for students to learn how to responsibly use digital technology, I think would be a benefit to this policy.
Right. Thank you, Ava.
I wanted to ask about when the push towards making sure that students were more aware about legal regulations regarding recording their peers and teachers came into play, because I do remember there being a good amount of conversations about this when I was in middle school, especially coming out of COVID. And then I haven't really gotten any messaging about it for the past few years. So I was just wondering if that's a recent push that we're trying to revive or what's going on.
That's exactly what we're trying to do.
Yeah, and I think that it's really important. It's easy to forget things and to get out of the habit of things. And I think really understanding that, I think we are like you, there are some states in which there is not a protection if you're, you only need one person to authorize the recording of something, but that's not Washington State. So Washington State is much stricter when it comes to recording of people. And so I think it's defining all of that, especially, we are public schools, but that does not mean necessarily that it's a public space. So like, if you're walking along a sidewalk, you do not have, you're not kind of afforded the right of protection, et cetera, because you're in public. So what are the laws around that? And so I think it's really kind of making sure we're clear, so that we're not at risk and that students are not at risk, that the adults that come in here aren't at risk of violating the law. Because lack of knowledge about a law does not keep you from the consequences of it. So, but thank you. I think, yes. So it is something that we need to make sure we're doing appropriately. I really appreciate this. I've had some reflections on this issue specifically and how, my children are older, right? So 22, 26, and how 15 years ago, this conversation was so different. It was so new. And, unfortunately, I was among the parents charting like what happens when your kid has access. And it wasn't a smooth road for us. And if I could go back, 10 years, I would completely redo how my kids interacted, especially with cell phones. So I think it's great that we as a society, because this is kind of a national movement, that we as a society are stepping back and saying, wait a second, what are we doing when we're putting technology into students' hands at a very young age, being able to access everything that is out there. And so I think that that's really important for us to be, there's so much for students to learn about technology and their access unmitigated. And not everybody out there is a kind, nice person for your best well-being. And a rule to live by is that the internet never forgets. So I always say, dance like nobody's watching and text or post as if it will be on the front cover of whatever local newspaper. So really kind of being thoughtful about when I post something, the internet never forgets. And what if I want to be qualified for a job one day and this is going to come back? So I think there's still a lot of learning for students that we've learned over the past 10 to 15 years, and much to the demise of some students. So what can we do to ensure and protect our students moving forward? So thank you. Any other?
I have one more question. For the handbook language, so that maybe it doesn't belong in the handbook, but is there the element of teacher discretion? Meaning the Skyline, I know we don't have any Skyline students here. I think they turn in the majority of their assignments and upload them to Canvas via their phone. And maybe that isn't how Issaquah turns their assignments in. But this seems so black and white. So is there teacher discretion for that? And how is that interplay gonna happen? Because I worry that we're trying to make it black and white, which makes it easier to enforce, and yet there's lots of gray because at least at Skyline, I think the majority of their assignments are turned in with their phone.
So I believe most of our high schools, I don't know about Gibson Eck, but all of our assignments are basically turned in via Canvas. We scan it, turn it into PDF, turn it in. And I think that would tie into the non-instructional time for the handbook policy, because there are times in high school, sometimes in middle school as well, where we have work time, where we get time to work on any assignments or homework in the spare time we have after like a lesson. I would think most teachers would consider that non-instructional time. So if a student were to finish their homework or an assignment during that time, they could take out their phone with their teacher's permission to scan it and then turn it in. If Dr. Bailey would confirm.
I hesitate to confirm without consulting the brilliant people who will be doing the work.
Right. Just because it says placed in a teacher designated location at the beginning of each class period and remain stowed until the end of each class period.
So my take on it is that our community has funded this one-to-one model for computers, and that's what they should be turning. I mean, so the things like, well, but I'm given a piece of paper to work on. But no, that's what I'm saying is we need to integrate all of it. So if this is how I'm supposed to be using technology in the classroom, then why am I being handed a piece of paper that I need to fill out? It should then also come through this same mechanic, this same technology that I can complete my homework on my computer and turn it in on my computer. So I'm like, that was the point of going to one-to-one. And if we as a system haven't figured out, this is your access point, not this, or we need to have a different discussion about what these do, these little machines in our hands. Milo.
So, we do a decent amount of work on paper. I don't know if that's how the other high schools do it, but we do a lot of work on paper because it's a big preference of a lot of the students, me in particular. I love writing things by hand. It's the way that I learn the best. And so using my phone to like take a picture of it and upload it, it would be much harder to like lift my laptop up and like point the camera. So if that's what you're getting at, I would just like, I would want us to talk about it and like make sure that that's gonna be like able to be done. I just don't know how I would personally get my work from paper onto my laptop without taking a picture of it.
And I was to say that if we're talking about sustainability, is less of this flippy floppy stuff made from trees and using the technology that we're already giving you. Aditi.
Look, I'm a
And then-
huge proponent of technology, but there's some subjects like physics and math that I can't imagine doing 100% on my school designated laptop. And so I guess for those purposes, I guess I'll just tell you the way that it works at our school. It's not the same across every single teacher's classrooms. Some teachers just say, put your phone in your backpack, stays in your backpack till the end of class. Other teachers have that teacher designated spot where you put your phone. So they call it the cell hotel. And usually if we need to turn something turn something in, they'll probably let us take it out for the last 2 to 5 minutes of class just to scan our work and turn it in, especially if that's the non-instructional time. So I found that works pretty well for me and my peers. And that's what I'd say about that.
Okay. And then Ava.
I was going to say a similar thing to DT, I think, especially when it comes to like typing math or physics or even in humanities subjects. I've definitely had classes where we've had to take notes on the textbook and then submit those, and like mandating that would have to happen on like Google Docs or something like that, I think would be a little bit more detrimental, just because I know there's a lot of students out there who will learn and remember better based off of like handwriting notes. But I do think that my teachers being a little bit more flexible and being able to kind of set some of the expectations in their classrooms is what has helped integrate like paper versus online use really well. I know that, for example, my math teacher won't want us using phones in the classroom, but we can just go up and show her our homework if we finish it, and then she'll check it off. Versus some teachers who have more like digital assignments, there's no real reason for them to need to authorize that. So I think the teacher-based flexibility is something that as a student helps me from an organizational standpoint, but also just efficiency.
Okay. Director Coyne.
I'll just add one piece that we haven't talked about. And I think oftentimes as parents, we set the expectation that the school will do something that we should be doing as parents, and that's modeling our own cell phone usage. I mean, I think about this thinking, oh, this is great for my students, but I think I am terrible with my phone. I am always on it in front of my kids. And so I think I would challenge parents to think about this. We've talked about the importance and of lessening cell phone use for our students, but parents need to model that. If you're on your phone all the time and then you send your student to school and expect the school to figure that out, that isn't going to lead to success. So I would challenge parents, and I'm talking about myself personally too, we could be better about that and model that for our kids. Thanks.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, great. Thank you so much for bringing this back to us and letting us see. So the next item I have on my agenda is the Operational Expectations 14 Instructional Programming. This is an emergency monitoring report, so there will not be a presentation, or do you have a presentation?
We do have some overarching comments to it, as we would do for any operational expectation monitoring report. So Dr. Bailey's remaining here at the podium and joined by Rich Mellish. And I just wanted to highlight that we will maybe bring in additional folks if there are questions for further clarification on items. So we'll defer to Dr. Bailey and Rich to figure that out for us. And one of the things that's important is that as we continue
I'm
to.
gonna start with a motion if that's.
Oh
okay.
my God, I'm sorry. That's what you were trying to tell me. I apologize. Okay, I'll come back after you do that. I apologize.
All right, I'm queued up. All right, I move the board approve the emergency monitoring of OE 14 instructional program for the current school year 24-25 through May 29, 2025 as presented.
Second.
Okay, there. I'm sorry about that.
It's all, you were ready and then you were looking at me, so I thought I was ready to go. So, I think the powerful thing is that we're in progress, and I just put a note in the very beginning that we talked about is like we're making headway, right? So we had some changes, and those are good changes. They're helpful to put us in a direction to expand access and opportunity to college credit bearing options. And so as much as we can do that, we are continuing. And I wanted to say that the emphasis also on credentialing is an area that I think is important to continue to fulfill our promise to our young people as they think about the different ways they can step off of the stage at graduation, which is coming up very soon, and be ready to engage in a career through promising post-secondary types of supports. So those are the things that I thought were really positive in the sort of revisions and that we're working towards, and we're seeing progress. So with that, I will make sure that we continue that and pass it back to you.
Thank you again, Superintendent and School Board, for the opportunity to present on our progress this year in the instructional program. In considering the evidence about opportunities for students to earn career certifications and specialized credentials, they are shown in two big buckets: high school level credentials, and there are many, and work-ready credentials that students can use immediately upon graduation to enter the workforce. These are culinary arts, earning the Serve Safe Food Manager certificate, the Teaching Academy with the formal paraprofessional certification, and next year, aerospace manufacturing, leading to the Core Plus certification, is starting at Liberty High School. In considering evidence for how the opportunities for students to earn college credits while in high school, these fall in two major buckets: dual credit opportunities through Running Start, CTE, and with the reinstatement of business law at Issaquah High School this year, college in the high school with many opportunities across the district. This year, Liberty High School qualified every section of contemporary literature, which is a 12th grade class. And next year, across the district, every pre-calculus class will be college in the high school certified. Credit by examination is the college admission title for courses taken in high school with a nationally normed nationally normed exam, such as advanced placement and international baccalaureate. New AP courses for 25-26 shown in the report, including Issaquah High is adding AP Pre-Calculus as a pilot, AP Music Theory, and AP African American Studies. New AP courses at Liberty High School include AP Economics, and new AP courses at Skyline include AP Computer Science Principles, AP Calculus A, B, and AP Statistics. New international baccalaureate classes for Skyline next year include standard level literature and language 11 and higher level chemistry. There are several advanced placement opportunities through our ISD online program as well. I would like to note that students may take an AP test without having taken the course, and in the Issaquah Schools Foundation has scholarships for students for whom this cost is a barrier. Many students in our district do that path of they don't take the class, but they take the test. Ensuring the instructional program makes space for all learners is a charge that the district welcomes and will likely always be working toward. The continued development of the multi-tiered system of support is a process, not a destination. Setting individual and school goals on the use of universal design for learning techniques will make more clear what is different at the classroom level. This too is a process, and it is in strategy priority 2. The expansion of credits through the ISD online learning program will allow students who know they are successful in that model take more credits in the online path. As the district continues to explore innovation and research-based new ways of doing the business of learning, the 2 new transition to kindergarten classes classrooms in the South End have resulted in 30 additional seats for a highly successful program at the early learning level. We can see they are growing every day and being more and more ready for the kindergarten in the fall. Although the elementary success block structure has been underway for a few years, the district is expanding success blocks to include a math-specific success block, allowing for dedicated time for any students who needs extra math instruction to access this evidence-based support of double dosing. Looking forward to next year, the micro school innovation will begin in 2 middle schools, creating opportunity for students to have a community-connected, interdisciplinary approach to middle school core curriculum. The work to ensure that instructional programs are uniformly implemented, monitored, and modified needs a database to base decisions upon. That wasn't very clear. The newly launched tiered teams tool allows for building leaders the opportunity to track students' academic progress in real time, interrupting a pattern of sliding grades and alerting at an earlier point in time in the academic challenge. Civics will be uniformly offered in the 12th grade, and the work on the Common Course catalog illuminated where inconsistencies across the district for access, credit earned, and opportunity were different in different schools. This has been remedied for the core program, and this strategy is moving to common electives in next year, 25-26. This update on the instructional program is to show what has been accomplished this year and what is in motion for next. And the team and I are happy to receive your questions and hear your discussion.
Thank you. So I'll put it to the board. Actually, public comment was the first thing. Sorry about that. So is there any public comment on this, either in the room or on Zoom? None on Zoom? Okay, now we'll move into board discussion. And I did want to say that because this is an emergency monitoring, we decided not to do a student advisory because the board asked for this to come back on an emergency monitoring. So we didn't have a time to robustly discuss that. Director Gallinger.
So I think I'll just start at the beginning and then kick off some discussion and then kind of work my way through it. But for 14.3b, courses providing the opportunity for students to accelerate learning that leads to college credit earning opportunities starting in 9th grade. And so I think one of my concerns is if when I look at the bottom of page 3, and it talks about advanced placement new courses, and for Skyline, it's adding AP Calculus, AP Statistics, and AP Computer Science Principles. Which course is intended for Skyline students to earn college credit starting in 9th grade?
AP Computer Science Principles.
So in total of 9th and 10th grade, they will have 1 chance to earn a credit. Versus if they attended Issaquah High School, they could have like 10 chances to earn AP credits. So I think I'm concerned that this doesn't meet the spirit of equity at all. Like 1 class for a total of 2 years is not meeting the standard that the board expects for equity across our district. The other part that I am more concerned about is the next line, which is International Baccalaureate new courses at Skyline, standard level literature language at 11th grade. And the expectation is that all students at Skyline juniors will be taking this class. And so I think I have equity concerns in that one, we want to offer rigorous coursework, but I don't think we want to mandate it. We do not want to mandate it. And so this feels like if we have to get more prescriptive in our language, which is what operational expectations are, then so be it. And that's why I wanted this to come back to the board, because I don't feel comfortable about us mandating. That'd be like us mandating at Issaquah for every student to take AP language in 11th grade. I don't think that we should do that. I don't think we should do that at Liberty. So I'm not sure why we're doing that at Skyline. And why that matters to me even more, and I wouldn't know this except that I'm a junior parent and my kid just took an SL exam, IB exam, is that for the colleges we're looking at, if you look at the top 50 colleges in the country, they don't accept SL exams for credit. And how defeating is that? And how many of I sit here and don't know that? You know, that my student just wasted 2 years of her schedule for that. That's not equivalent to what our students at Liberty and Issaquah get to. So my student will get 0 credit versus if she went to Liberty or Issaquah, she would get 10 credits. That's not okay. And I don't think that, we are not communicating that important fact to parents that we should know as we come into registration period, so we can thoughtfully be able to register for coursework, not only to prepare our students for the next step, many of which go on to college, but in this economic environment, we want to give every student the chance to walk in with credits, because it's not only the more credits you take, the more flexibility you have, but we know that a lot of students want to do it because then the earlier they get to register. So our Skyline students are a distinct disadvantage to our other 2 high schools. And I think this report and the work that the district is doing is not adequately capturing that inequity that exists. And this is why I wanted to bring this up to the board level conversation, because I have serious concerns. And then when we look at, and then we wonder, like, why is the Sammamish area not satisfied and voting against school bonds? Well, Sammamish area is not getting the same shake as other parts of our school district. So I don't think they're satisfied with the educational opportunities for their kids. And I wanted to bring that up tonight.
Sure. So I'll track the notes I took and answer your questions in order. And if I miss anything, bring it back to the top. I believe that the Skyline Language Arts Department looked at the IBSL expectations and the current on grade level 11th grade class and found them to be so similar that there was virtually no change in the course content. The SL classes are they're standard level, they're on grade level classes. So the higher level class would be comparable to the AP class. So I think there were 105 students from Issaquah from Skyline last year who went to Issaquah to take an AP exam, having taken the IB version of the class. So to answer your question, the standard level classes are not considered to be advanced. They are on grade level. So that is why we believe it is a move that we're interested in taking to see if we can open opportunities for students, have them see themselves as bold learners. And it is an on grade level class.
Then they're pitching it as a college level class, because they are pitching it to the students and the parents and saying, you have the opportunity to earn college credit with this class. So you should embrace this change. That's the words that's coming out of the building.
Sure. I appreciate that insight. That would be really honestly very similar to the move for Liberty that all 11 or all 12th grade contemporary literature classes are college and the high school certified. So they sat down with the syllabus of both the BC class and their standard syllabus and said, these are close enough that we can go for it. So that would be very similar to the same path happening at Liberty in the contemporary lit class.
Every 12th grader at Liberty takes that class, or every 12th grader has a chance to take that class?
I think it's the standard 12th grade class.
Students do get to choose which 12th grade ELA class they take. That is one of the options.
Right. So then I would say that's quite dissimilar to Skyline, where they don't get a choice.
Okay. I think I saw Aditi.
Yeah, 12th graders get a choice between classics, which is the standard on-level English, contemporary lit, which is also standard on-level English, but you do get the CHS certification. And then we have AP English literature. So,
Dr. Coyne.
I'll add some additional thoughts on that too. And I understand with the evolution of moving from IB, solely offering IB, to offering both IB and AP, that there's some patience that we'll have to have with that. I will say, though, I definitely have concerns. I understand, if we're deblocking, that also forces us to do some things that are kind of unique in these transition periods. But I will say I have some serious concerns with forcing students to take an IB course. And I look at that too. Not only do I have the concern with that, but the conversation around how can it really be an IB course if it is technically, if the curriculum is the same as the standard level. So I'm not sure, I'm struggling with that. I don't know how we could, how we would describe it as an advanced course if it in fact isn't. And then, so I see kids being forced into it. And then I see the kids who would intentionally take it wondering, well, am I really taking a real IB course? I don't know if there's some perspective on that.
Sure. I don't want to miss my opportunity to talk about change management, but I think you've hit the nail on the head that our schools are rigorous and their base plan is rigorous, and King County schools are very competitive in our state colleges. So the 11th and 12th grade courses often are very similar to first and sometimes second year courses that are offered in college. So many of us have kids who have transitioned to college and said, this was not harder, than what I did in high school. So the question of when you take the syllabus and put them head to head and you analyze what you're teaching, how you're teaching, and the level of understanding that you're expecting to come out, and the standard level class and say a college and the high school 111-ish class is so similar, I think it, number one, names the fact that our schools are very rigorous. And number two, I think we should put opportunities. I believe that was the charge of this OE, to put opportunities in front of students and do the adult work that needs to be done so that students have the opportunity. So speaking back to Dr. Gallinger's first comment, the change management at Skyline is in progress. When we talked about what AP classes would augment the program there, we looked very carefully at what AP classes offered in 11th, 9th, and 10th grade, and other schools were highly successful. And this is the one that we started with because it's highly successful in other schools. Doesn't mean that there aren't more to come. This is where we started for the first iteration. And it is, I think there are hundreds of kids who take this class in the rest of the system.
I don't know the exact
Yeah,
number.
I think
Yes,
there's
it's
at
quite a
least
bit.
3 sections at each school. So the 9th and 10th grade opportunities in other schools that have AP classes in 9th and 10th grade is true. This is one that we selected because it's highly successful for other students. And at the same time, Skyline is deblocking both on grade level and honors level humanities, which will create opportunities and things to learn next year as the process goes forward. We'll also need to add AP Calculus BC the following year, because that's the next in the progression.
And I appreciate that. I mean, I understand the transition with that and the change management that goes along with it. I still have that concern on forcing students to take an IB course. And maybe it's a bigger conversation around, gosh, the standard level course, if it really is on par with an IB course, that's a whole conversation in and of itself, that maybe that standard level course is too rigorous. And we do hear that from parents too.
Sure. So I know that the Skyline team, including the Skyline special education teachers and the Skyline multilingual teachers, have really sat together to press on that exact question, and they believe they can do it. They believe that it is a worthy endeavor to encourage people who maybe didn't see themselves as IB learners or college-bound people to put it on their plate. And those teachers really believe that they can do it.
And I, appreciate their perspective and enthusiasm around it. I know from what we hear from the community is reassessing rigor, particularly at that school, and thinking about, the fact that there could be too much there. I want to go back to the evolution and thinking about the rollout of this. And Director Gallinger mentioned it too, because the AP courses are definitely weighted more towards the 11th and 12th grade. And initially, and I think the struggle with that is students at that school are already locked into generally an IB you know, either obviously IB diploma or IB career track. And so it would be hard in some cases to probably pivot to AP unless they're just generally, you know, not necessarily part of those tracks. So it becomes harder. I do see there's probably more opportunity for 9th and 10th graders to start taking some of the AP courses more so than it would be for 11th and 12th graders. I don't know if that was looked at, like, again, maybe starting with 9th and 10th graders and offering more versus 11th, 12th that are already locked in to IB courses. I don't know if that was looked at.
I know that another course that is highly successful in the 9th and 10th grade in the other high schools did not feel like the right place to start because the team had to manage the successful deblocking at both honors and the regular level. So it might be helpful if in our common course catalog, we're able to show what courses are available for 9th and 10th grade. So you can put a number on this is what's available here and this is what's enabled and what is available in other places. It is a regatta of moving all things forward at the same time and doing some things well so that you can build on a successful venture with more things that are successful in the future. And it is not to be left behind. The college and the high school work is going forward in giant steps.
Great, thank you.
So, AJ, saying you're taking notes, I would love to capture this part. I think what's missing for me is in that first sentence, it should say courses providing the opportunity for students to accelerate learning that leads to equitable college credit earning opportunities starting in 9th grade. Because that's still what we're so far from. And so if you're saying that SL, well, it isn't really a college level class, that's definitely not what the message is coming out of that building. And then if we're saying, well, HL is the college level class, again, there is an inherent disadvantage to go to Skyline because you take IB, HL, English, it's a 2-year course, and you come out and if you pass the test, you get 5 college credits. In that same time period, at Liberty and Issaquah, you take AP language in 11th grade, you take AP literature in 12th grade, and you come out with 10 credits. Like, this is where Skyline students have half the opportunity to earn college credits. And that's not okay for me. And I hope it's not okay for anyone sitting on this board. And I think this needs to be addressed immediately, which is why I brought it up for emergency monitoring. And I really want to make sure that people understand what it is that I'm concerned about. And it's about equity and opportunities for students to be successful.
Building off of the idea of messaging, maybe this was discussed and I just missed it because there was a good amount of discussion, but I've taken 2 non-AP classes at IHS that I've gotten college credit for. One of them was Spanish 3 honors, and that was a specific college and the high school course. And we knew that going into it during course registration and all of that, that number 1, it was above standard level, and then number 2, it was a course that would receive college credit. The other one I took was Sales and Marketing 1, and I didn't know that that was a course that had any sort of college credit tied to it until the end, when my teacher just basically said, hey, all of you guys earned a grade that qualified you for a certain amount of college credit, and we filled out a form to get credit at Washington University, I think, and that's not even something that I knew going into the course or that a lot of people were aware of, even as the opportunity to like fill out the form and things like that was taking place. And that brings me to the question, number 1, does all college credit classes like pre-calc and things like that mean that they will inherently be college in the high school or aligned with UW? And then number 2, are they all honors courses, or can we have standard level courses that are getting college credit like we were talking about at Skyline?
Sure, I can answer some of that question. So the college and the high school courses have to match up with a syllabus that is evident at a college. So 101, 111 seem to be matching up with our senior and some of our junior level classes just very nicely. In this state, everybody who takes an AP test, an IB test, and gets those satisfactory scores, or earns a B or better in a college and high school class, gets those transcripted to a Washington State College just straight away. It's a state law. It's everybody gets them as the credits that they are. So our goal in leaning into parts of this expectation that say we want them to be uniformly implemented was to move away from one teacher saying, I want to make my class college and high school certified. So if it was a course title, we talked to everybody and we got everybody on board, and we're moving them all forward together so that a student at Liberty whose teacher is college and high school certified and that class is going to earn 10 credits wouldn't be different than a teacher who's teaching pre-calculus at Skyline who wouldn't. So that's a different part of this OE, but it's a huge part of what we're trying to accomplish, which is that uniformity across the system as much as we have the authority to do so. So I am surprised and not surprised that your CTE class didn't come right out and say that they are college and high school, that it's called dual credit. Many of them are, and it's a highly successful program. So if you take the next class, it will also be college and high school approved.
Director Gallinger.
So Skyline offers that same, at least by title, sales and marketing 1. Why do we have a school that they get college credit and a school that they don't? 2 schools that don't and 1 school that does.
Well, this year, the work was on the core language arts, math, social studies, and science. That was the strategy to line up the language arts, social studies, math, and science courses. If they had the same course title, they were going to have the same grade level access, the same credits awarded, and the same opportunity. Next year's strategic plan is moving into the common electives.
And I think that brings me to 14.6 and why that's so important for the equitable part. So 14.6 is ensure that all instructional programs, including both content and practice, are uniformly implemented, regularly monitored, and modified as necessary to assure the continuing effectiveness. And, you know, what my interpretation of that is that no matter where you go to a high school, that you're getting that same chance and opportunity. So then I would ask, if 11th grade on-level course at Skyline is equivalent to the IBSL, does that mean that the 11th grade ELA course on level for Liberty and Issaquah also could technically be labeled IBSL English? Because what I would hope and expect is that at 11th grade on level course, and what the whole point of this OE is that any student that was a 10th grader at one high school should be able to go to take an 11th grade class at another one of our high schools and it be equivalent.
I'm not sure I understand your question. It wouldn't, the IB program isn't at Issaquah, so it wouldn't have the course title of IB. But in my mind, it would be very possible that another big push could look at all the 12th grade language arts on grade level classes, or even the next one I was thinking of would be the civics. The civics is very logical as a poli-sci 112 or 116, but the connection to the work that the students are already doing in our schools, if it matches up with a college course and is the same level of rigor, I think we should be striving to offer college credit for it.
Director Taylor.
I'm going to up level here a bit, but I really agree with Director Gallinger on this issue. What I'm seeing is that, and I know there's lots of reasons for this, there's legacy here that we're talking about. But what we're really doing is supporting 2 disparate programs, which is the fundamental issue. There's an IB program at one of our schools, and there is not at the other schools, which is creating all of these issues of equity, which in my mind, as somebody with a elementary school child that will be going into this system, if I was a parent in the community when this would have become evident to me, I would be asking the fundamental question is why are they different? Why does my kid have one experience in one high school and a different experience in a different high school? That doesn't make any sense to me. So I think we need to be to Director Gallanger's point, making every effort when we see these disparities to address them, which is why we're having the conversation right now. But the fact that a freshman or sophomore at Skyline only has one opportunity for college credit in the first 2 years, where kids in the other high schools have more, that is just grossly inequitable in my mind. So I'm not sure what the answer is here, other than we need to, I guess we're doing the work now. We're identifying where the issues are. And when we see these issues, they need to be corrected. And maybe we need to have a more fundamental question, a more fundamental discussion again as to why we're supporting IB in one school and AP in the other schools. Because it does not make sense to me. It just doesn't make sense. Just leave it at that.
Well,
Oh, sorry.
I would say that it is hard to change things that are sacred cows. But I've lived through that. Liberty used to have 8 periods until it was determined that that was inequitable. And so they moved to 7. With really no regard to whether or not you wanted it or not. The district came back and said, we're moving to 7. And so at some point, we do have to have a discussion about when we talk about we want, let me see, ensure that all instructional programs, including both content and practice, are uniformly implemented. What does that mean? And is it saying what it says there, which may not make everybody happy?
Yeah, it's not going to make everyone happy.
I couldn't agree more. I think Skyline is so big, it can be a yes and if the district has a desire to do that. This is incumbent on the district. That's why we're having this conversation at this level.
Yeah.
So when 20% of a graduating class does IB diploma, what are we doing for the other 80%? Now, this is rhetorical because I mean, that's why we're having this conversation. So yes, preserve the IB program for the 20% of the high school students that are doing it, but let's actually create equitable learning opportunities and college credit earning opportunities for the other 80% of the graduating class every year at Skyline. And that's what we're not doing. And that's not okay. And we need to say that's not okay.
But then the inverse is also true, which is that there's kids at the other schools that don't have the opportunity for IB. Because that could be 20% of those populations. So it does, it is to your point, right? It is a district decision, but I personally would espouse as much uniformity across the district as we could possibly strive for.
Aditi.
Yeah, I guess in my mind, the only real solution I get or fix would be to offer AP and IB, but obviously that's going to require so many more resources, and we really have to think about what the pros are of the AP curriculum and what the pros are of the IB curriculum and kind of weigh that. But to Director Taylor's point and to Director Gallanger's point, if I live in Renton, I get 10 college credits my freshman and sophomore years versus if I lived in Sammamish, that opportunity is different. I don't think the opportunity should just be different solely based on my geographic location, because I think that's just what it's coming down to. But at the same time, there's a trade-off. I guess you could say in some ways Skyline is at an advantage too, because if you're going to an international school, let's say, those credits that you earn from IB could be transferred to that international school. Whereas if I go to Liberty, my AP credits aren't going to transfer if I go to, so there's inequity on several fronts, and you could argue it for Skyline being at an advantage, for Skyline being at a disadvantage. I think the only solution to kind of fix this is all 3 schools have to be kind of cookie cutter, like the same, and completely uniform. That's the only solution in my mind, but I could be wrong there.
Director Taylor.
The other issue here for me is that I don't think families in our district understand this, because you're going to be focused on the curriculum of the high school that you're in. I think by the time that our families get down the line as to, well, what is happening at Issaquah High when my kid's at Skyline, that's when the opportunities then have passed. And in order to right the ship, so to speak, it might be too late.
That's why this hasn't come up, because I now have a junior at Skyline. And
Right.
so prior to that, when I had a second grader at Discovery, I'd heard complaints about the IB program, but I didn't get to understand. And the more I peel away the layers about it, the more inequitable I see and see why there has been decades of frustration at the Skyline feeder pattern in the parent community.
And I wouldn't know if I wasn't a member of the school board right now with an elementary school child, I would not know any of this.
Right. Director Coyne.
You know, I kind of want to circle back again and level set for folks, and maybe folks that are listening in too that maybe don't know. So again, there is an implementation of AB courses at Skyline. So they are doing, that is happening for next year. But I think in this conversation kind of bring us, I guess I'm kind of looking for what we're solving for. I mean, there's a broader conversation, broader concerns that are brought up. I guess I would just ask the board, I think we know that the district has built out a multi-year implementation plan, but I think there are specific concerns with next year's implementation of AP at Skylines. And I would say, again, to bring us back to what we're trying to solve for, I think it's 11th grade, you know, the standard 11th grade English, terming that as IB, I think that is a concern. And I think there is the concern, and maybe this is part of the longer term plan, and it's where I maybe would like to hear from the district, is those AP courses being more readily available for 9th and 10th graders. And maybe that is part of the implementation for year 2. But in my mind, I guess that's where I come to with this conversation, because it's a broader philosophical conversation that frankly we've been having for, you know, months now, and have had, you know, community forums with the Skyline community on this too. But I guess those are my concerns right now. And maybe, I don't know, Dr. Billy, if you could.
Sure. I'm going to invite Mr. Mellish to take us into the weeds a little bit, because he's pretty nimble with what courses are offered in other schools. And remember that Running Start and, well, I'll let you talk about Running Start doesn't start until 11th grade. So the 9th and 10th grade is below the entrance level to Running Start. But will you please share which AP classes are offered at 9th and 10th grade in other schools?
Yeah, I also want to make sure that we make one other distinction that was brought up earlier. So in college and the high school, there's actually 2 different governing systems. There's the CTE dual credit, and then there's college and the high school. And those 2 each have different requirements. So I would have to get back to you about the questions about the dual credit opportunities, and I'd have to sit down with Director Neighbors to really make sure we get the correct information there, because that is governed by the agencies that oversee career and technical education. So the bulk of the AP credits are designed for 11th and 12th grade. There are 2 social studies classes that are offered regularly in 9th and 10th grade in our district that are AP classes. And there are, of course, a few students who get to AP calculus in 10th grade.
Awesome.
Yeah. But, and then we did put on the course catalog this year, AP African American Studies, offered at all 3 schools. We only had enough enrollment to kind of start getting there in one school this first year of offering that. And that one was offered to 10th, 11th, and 12th grade. So just trying to say the bulk of the AP courses are in 11th and are designed for 11th and 12th grade. So I just wanted to kind of clarify that, because yeah, so the AP Human Geo and AP World History are the 2 that are typically offered in 9th and 10th grade in the state of Washington, or at least in our district that we've had. And AP Computer Science Principles, I should say. That one is now at all 3 schools.
And that perspective is helpful. I guess, I think, again, understanding the multi-year rollout is helpful with this, and understanding that we're moving in that direction. Again, I think I'll come back because I do have concerns on 11th grade English. That's still concerning to me, that point.
And I wanted to clarify one thing. So both at Skyline and then we took a look at the standard level IB course scope and their framework and our existing scope and sequence for 11th grade ELA. And the IB allows selection of novel, just like our scope and sequence allows selection of novels. So we were able to kind of really map the 2 So even though Issaquah High School and Liberty aren't IB schools, so can't offer it as an IB class, it is an equivalent course. The scope and sequence and the framework are closely aligned to each other in content and in learning expectations. So it truly is a standard level course, meaning that it's at standard. Just as the courses, the equivalent course at Liberty and Issaquah High are standard level courses and taught at standard. So they are essentially the same learning outcomes and the bulk of the same learning experiences. IB does bring some approaches to those that are instructional that they will layer into that, but in terms of learning outcomes and learning experiences, they're very consistent with our scope and sequence.
What about things like workload?
In the scope and in our scope and sequence, we indicated kind of the amount of reading basically that's expected because it's a lot of literature-based learning, novel-based. So we did a lot of talk in that adoption of making sure that we kind of calibrated that across the schools. The writing expectations are similar across the schools. But our scope and sequence does provide a fair amount of agency for the schools to add a lot of flavor to these. And so I don't know that I can speak. I don't know that I can speak to the student feel exactly as you're saying, because I do think that in our ELA classes, we've really tried to empower a lot of agency of how that plays out in that novel-based learning experience.
Because my concern is that there's going to be extra workload to try to live up to that IB name.
Yeah.
And again, because I think that, our policies have a lot of words, but to me, they're student focused. And I'm concerned, is this student focused to be able to do the standard level IB for all at Skyline? Is that a student focused decision? And I'm not sure that it is, because I'm not, is that what the people were clamoring for? Who asked for that? How many students? Was it a student petition to ask, please, we should all get IB standard level? So who made the decision? Because if it's adults making decisions for adults, or is it students saying, hey, this is what we need because we're not getting what we need in our current model? So to me, I feel like it was an answer to a question that wasn't asked.
And like for our students that are pursuing fields in STEM, they are the gigantic disadvantage of Skyline, because we have 60 to 90 students coming into Skyline as freshmen that have taken biology in middle school. And they walk in and they get to take 0 advanced science classes until they are an 11th grader. Now, if you come through the Merlin program and you go to Issaquah High School, you have advanced science classes to take, as in they will let you take AP classes because you come in and you've already taken biology in your middle school. At Skyline, we have 60 to 90 kids that come in and don't have that. So I actually would differ from you, and I'm very concerned about the 11th and 12th grade opportunities, because if you come in and you are at Liberty or at Issaquah in 11th grade, you can take AP chemistry and AP physics. In fact, you could probably take 10th grade AP chemistry, 11th grade AP physics, 11th grade AP physics, and you will have 15 science credits that you will walk in to college with. And you can take AP Calculus AB, AP Calculus BC, and you'll have 10 more credits. So just from science and math alone, you could walk in easily with 25 credits into college. At Skyline, because you can't take anything till your junior year, and it's an HL class, you have one chance. You get one class. You can either take HL biology, HL chemistry, or HL physics. So you get one college class to take as a science class, and then HL math. So the maximum you can earn for college credits, again, taking what are essentially 4 classes worth of classes at Liberty and at Issaquah, 10 credits. Like, that is like our kids are walking into college so at a disadvantage for especially if you're pursuing STEM majors. And because in this age, generally students apply to a major, which when we were all kids, in the dinosaur age, you applied to a college.
Right.
But our students are applying to a major and they're applying. And I just, again, as a junior parent, just learned in the Common App, there's a place where you put what AP courses you have and what your scores were. So at Skyline, when they're applying, because most of them don't take any courses until their senior or their test of senior year, that whole section is blank.
So that might be one of the reasons why about 100 students from Skyline took AP tests at Issaquah High last year, and probably, I would guess the same number this year. I don't have that report yet. And the difference between all of these earning credits for a high stakes test, even the farther you dig down, the more different it is. AP chemistry, as an example, if you get a 5 is worth 15 college credits, but a 4 is worth 10 and a 3. And that is not true for the humanities disciplines. You get 5. If you get 3 or 4 or 5 on AP, you get 5 quarter college credits. The colleges have links in where their application is about what they accept and what they don't accept. And it is, it's a little bit outside of Washington State, it's a little bit of everything, but most colleges that I was looking at in the last few days accept some versions of something, except the languages. Sometimes they are less interested in accepting either AP or IB courses for world language.
Director Coyne.
And Director Gallagher, I hear what you're saying, and definitely I get it. I will say, having a student who's graduating from Skyline now and going through this full process, our Skyline students, yes, there may be that disadvantage, but I don't think it's holding them back. They're going, if those that are college bound are going amazing places and are going pretty much anywhere they wanted to go, if that was their intent. So it could be, and I think there's broader conversation. I mean, we could be here all night having this conversation. If we could bring us where I'd like to bring us back to is this 11th grade English conversation. That is concerning to me. When I think about that from an equity standpoint, I think about that with the town hall that we had with the Skyline community, where there were many parents in the room saying, please don't make this more rigorous. By adding AP, you're going to make this more rigorous. And I'm struggling with going back to those parents and saying, that wasn't, I told you that wasn't our intent, but now your child is going to be forced to take an IB course. And I don't think it's a conversation where I can say, well, yeah, if we put the curriculum side by side, it's the same. And that parent's going to tell me, well, then what's the on-standard course? There's a problem. There's a rigor problem. And I think that's my more immediate concern with this. I'm just, again, the role that we play in interfacing with the community, I am really struggling with how I communicate that to members of our community, that your student will have to take an IB course. Even everything we've discussed, I get it, but I'm struggling with how I go back as a school board member in our community and say they will have to take an advanced placement course. And it cannot be, hey, we want to give your student this opportunity to expand their skill set and to challenge them. Parents, I know there are parents in our community who are going to say that that's just not right.
The most I can say is that it is an on-grade level course. And I know that I heard you say that it's being promoted as a college comparable course or earning college credits. The standard level is precisely on the grade level, so it is not considered advanced for 11th graders. The content isn't considered advanced for the 11th graders. And the team of people who heard your challenge, they have taken your worries to heart, and they have spent a lot of time this year thinking through, how do we make this accessible? How do we make this a great learning experience for every single human being in those classes? And they believe they can do it.
Can I add one other thing on this, on the 11th grade SL? My understanding is that students are not being required to take the IB tests. Okay, so they do not have to, they can take the SL class, and it's an option of whether they want to take the SL tests, the IB tests, but that is going to be optional. So those students who don't want to go through that testing regimen will not have to prepare for that testing regimen.
I'm going to
Right, but I think we're getting back to the point is that every student and parent in our district should know that they shouldn't waste their time, because unless they're going to the University of Washington, any of the top 50 schools in the country, no SL course test in any subject area is accepted for college credit. So then what's the point?
Well, and I think, weren't you talking about how there's still some of the work that's done? There's a project that's done that's going to be part of the homework for everybody that actually is part of the testing. So it's like, well, you can say you don't have to take the test except for the part of the testing, which is actually your project that's going to be homework. Aditi.
Yeah, I think there's a lot to take in. I think so. I guess until you said that last comment, I was kind of just under the impression that if it's just a regular course being labeled IB, as long as it's, I guess, marketed right, in that this is not going to be accepted for college credit at these schools, but it might be at this school. I don't know exactly how IB works. I got to be honest. I think as long as it's marketed right, I personally don't see an issue with it. If it's just the standard course and you're just labeling it IB, because why not? And give the opportunity to take the IB exam for students that choose to. I see the issue with what you just said about what if there's a huge end of year project, or that, I don't know how IB works, the theory of knowledge.
That's right.
I don't know.
Well done.
Thank you. I have no idea. But if that's going to be required in the course, I'm not sure how this works. But I will say that I think it is kind of comparable to our English classes that offer CHS credit, because college and the high school credit is not accepted by the top 50 colleges in the United States either, right? It's accepted by University of Washington and I think a lot of our state schools, but it's not accepted by schools that are out of state typically. And so there are similarities. I think what needs to be more clear is just the marketing, just the communication. Because if it's labeled as an IB course, or if it's labeled as a CHS course, or whatever it might be, as long as it's not more rigorous, I don't see the problem with it being labeled as such, if it's going to offer that opportunity. You know what I mean? I don't know if that makes any sense, but
I agree with you with the labeling. The difference is that at Liberty, you get to choose if you want to take it. And at Skyline, you don't get to choose. You will be taking it if you're an 11th grader at Skyline.
So there's the thread the needle nuance that you brought up, which is there are components that happen throughout the year that add up to the ultimate test score. And that's very clearly articulated, or was articulated to me by the teaching team about that's the optional work if the students aren't aiming for those credits. So I had an opportunity today to look up the most frequently attended colleges that our students go to. And the University of Arizona actually does take VC credits because they said so. They have an agreement with them. But the university, the first five, University of Arizona, Purdue, Arizona State, Montana State, and Oregon State all take IB, SL, and HL credits. Is the difference is how many they're giving you. Sometimes it's 3, sometimes it's 6, sometimes it's more if your score is higher. But of the places that our students go, they are, the websites of those schools say they are accepted.
Krish.
I kind of want to piggyback off what Aditi said. So just like throughout this conversation, I'm kind of thinking back to Liberty and the bringing up of the contemporary literature class. And so although there's that choice at Liberty, as far as I know, most of the seniors I know who aren't taking that AP literature course do actually choose to take the contemporary literature course. And I feel like a lot of that ties back to the marketing that Aditi was talking about, right? Like it's still a CHS class, but you know, it's been shown to students in a way where it's like, hey, it's not so much more rigorous and all this extra coursework, although times it might seem like that, but you still get the credit. And then the other thing is, I've heard this come up like several times, is 100 or so Skyline students going to Issaquah to take an AP test. And so when I hear that, that's like a shocking number, because on top of doing whatever IB programs or rigorous coursework they're doing at Skyline, they're finding extra time to self-study the entire AP curriculum, put in the extra work, then take the test. And it's like over 100 students. And I bet you there's many more students who want to do that who just don't have the time to. So if that doesn't show demand or like need or necessity, I don't know what does. And for me, I'm like looking back at it, I'm extremely grateful that I don't have to do that and I don't have to put in all that extra work on the side, because clearly, you know, students do want to take AP and get that credit as well.
Ava. And then we're going to circle up because we're already at 8:20 with this conversation.
A few quick things. First of all, I keep hearing that the Skyline English course is IB, but it's also at grade level. And so I was just kind of wondering how we determine what is grade level. Is it like a department or a district decision, or whether that's like state level? Because if it's the state or if it's a broader like educational organization, then I can see how that aligns with IB. But if we in our district or in our schools are just determining that grade level is IB, then I can definitely see how the question of do our schools have too much rigor could come about. The other thing is, I know Chris was talking about the 100 Skyline students coming to Issaquah to take AP courses, and I just want to point out that even if the actual content in IB and AP courses were perfectly aligned, every AP class I've taken spends a lot of time preparing students specifically for the structure of the test and taking practice tests. And I think that's a big enough component of my score that I would be curious as to how Skyline students map that from an IB to AP curriculum, because I bet it's difficult, even if you don't look at content.
Right. Thank you. Okay, Superintendent.
I want to be clear about our stance on behalf of the district that welcoming more opportunities to take AP is very important to continue to make progress towards. But the question of also, what about then other schools that don't have IB? The reverse of that is very important. And I do want to share that we embrace figuring out how to make things more accessible for all kids across the board. And there's different elements of the equal access and or equitable access that are important to surface. And we solve for one, we have others that pop up. That's not to say it's an overwhelming or daunting task, but I will say that based on this conversation, the district has been out of compliance with its OE forever. So I say that because this is sparking a very important conversation around what do we want that to look like in terms of uniformity, like defining that really clearly. If that's a system that we want to then move into, that does require more discussion, but also a lot of discussion with the community because other parts of our community would also be impacted by what those implications could be about having uniformity as exact, you know what I mean, opportunities at every single school. So what's our range of where we accept the same and also where we accept difference? And that's the loose, tight conversation, which is an important one. And I'm glad that we're talking about it because I think that is a longer term one, but it also is important. And your immediate topics, you know, for next year, we will continue to learn and grow, especially at the bringing on more AP. I think all the points that have been made have been helpful to sort of show that we're going in the right direction. And I hear that we're not moving fast enough as a bit of a question, and it is hard to move fast too at the same time. So we're doing our very best in that regard, but I want to make sure that we can figure out a time to have a larger conversation on what is the appetite and range for loose tight in terms of expectations for courses and programs, and are those the right ones that prepare us to have our students be as successful and to thrive in their day-to-day work in a classroom, but also in their options afterwards.
I appreciate that. And I would say for me, as loose tight, I think there's nothing more foundational for whether you're going to Bellevue College, to UW, to Brown, to George Washington. There's nothing more foundational than the 4 years of English and 4 years of math. And if we could get there on the tight part of that, every one of our buildings has the same opportunity to earn the same amount of college credit for those two departments, that would make me happy. And to be loose around social studies, sciences, and all the electives and the distinctive feels and flavors of our schools, which I don't want to lose. But those foundational parts for the next step of life, which is math and reading, I think they should have the same amount of chance to earn the same amount of credit and have the same chance to be competitive.
And I think it might be us as a board looking at the language of 14.6 and saying, does that require some reworking on our part to be clear about what we mean in that uniformity? Because I would agree that as long as you have schools of different sizes, you'll never have a lot of, there can't be complete parity, right? Because I can only offer so many classes in a 1,500 student high school than I can a 2,400 student high school. So there's going to always be variations there. I think this has been a good discussion. I don't know I think that there's definitely room for us to have more of a discussion. I don't know when we can maybe slate that for. Otherwise, we're going to have like a 5-day board retreat. But it is work. Thank you to staff for bringing this back to us. And with that, I think we have a motion. So all those in favor, say aye. All opposed?
Again, I just want to ask.
Okay, so I'll go back to go back to discussion.
Yeah, it sounds like, I don't know, I just don't sound like we're on any kind of an agreement as to what
That's
14.3 and 14.6 say.
Mm.
Okay, go ahead. I'm ready.
Okay. So all those in favor of approving monitoring report OE 14, say aye. All opposed, say nay.
Nay.
The nays have it. Next item on the agenda is strategic plan update priority area. Oh, that went away. I was reading off of the wall. Priority area 1, student well-being, and priority area 2, academic opportunities.
Right.
Yeah, I was gonna say,
Yep.
you're up,
All
Mr.
right.
Marcel Hauser, and I think we have other team members joining us. Dr. Shane Carver and Dr. Dana Bailey is taking a short break
Water
to
break,
get
yeah.
ready. Yes, a water break. So thanks.
Yeah, Marcel Hauser, Senior Advisor and Strategy Lead. Good evening again. So tonight will be our third in a series of conversations, updates around the strategic plan. Tonight, we're going to cover 2 different areas. So we worked in reverse order. We went 5, 4, 3, 2. We're going to get to 1. And then we'll follow up on June 10th with our results 1. So it's been a series of updates. And tonight, I'll share a little bit about engagement. So we've had, between the gaps of from the last board meeting to now, had a chance to sit in front of a few different groups. Also, as recent as today, I went to Issaquah High School with Julia Bamba and had a chance to talk to some students. So have some feedback from them as well. So again, we always want to start with vision and mission just to keep us grounded in the work. And again, like I mentioned, the 2 areas, we're going to talk student well-being tonight and academic opportunities. Just a reminder of alignment. So when we do the work, we always want to ensure we align to our operational expectations and our results. So our board policies. So any strategic plan work that comes or any work we do in the district should align. And with that, it brings us to a quick engagement update, then I'll pass it to the doctors. Surrounded by brilliance next to me. Okay, so we had a couple of different meetings in between the last time we met. So I had a chance to talk to the Issaquah School Foundation Board, and there's a couple of different highlights or just themes that came out of those conversations. So I'll highlight a few. And we've talked a lot today about the need for just college and career opportunities for students and courses or opportunities for students to have real world challenges. So that's a theme that came up with that group. We also had a chance to meet with our district administrators here in the building, and we had an opportunity to show them some enrollment proactive ideas that we've been socializing throughout the community, just to highlight like here's what we can do that really highlight. And one thing that came out was how we market ourselves a little bit differently to spotlight some of the strengths and some of the great things that we actually do and we operate on. Then the other piece was how do we eliminate some of that misinformation that's out there in the community? And how do we build more pride around what we do, what we're doing? So I think we've talked tonight about a lot of the things, and what I like is we're always striving toward like how do we improve, but there is a lot that we can really just shine a light on for community to see. The other piece is I got a chance to meet with the parent advisory group. This is a group we've been to a few times, just consistently going back to ask around how are we doing. So there's feedback coming asynchronously from that group. And then last, thank you, Donna Hood, her leadership supported me connecting with the union leadership to chat about the strategic plan and get an update. And one big piece that came from that conversation was around, how do we continue to communicate big changes, big things? So when, just a couple examples, but just to share out is like when we do something big, if we want that buy-in from teachers, we want to make sure we stay tight with communication and we ask for feedback on impact. So very grateful to receive feedback there. And before I drop off the mic, my phone. So this just came in from students. So I had a chance to meet with some students down at Issaquah High, and we asked around the student experience. So the questions were framed, talked about some highlights from your high school experience, and a few things popped, which were around the ability for self-discovery. So a chance to discover who you are and experience different courses, but also community connections and social connections was a big theme that came from the students we spoke to. And we asked around, if you wanted to wave a magic wand and reimagine school, what could that look like for you? And some of the things the students spoke to was it won't be a shock to anybody on the board here. Class sizes, school sizes, being able to navigate. A couple of students spoke to having to run from the bell ringing to the next class. And we visited on a light day. So we were there when I think there was testing. So there weren't as many kids there. And I can attest that I even got caught in a swarm of students leaving. So I was trying to dodge and play, duck, duck, goose with students to kind of get to the next space. So that's a real thing. And I just want to keep pulling that forward because that's being said from our students. So I think that should always live prominently in these spaces. And with that, I'll stop there. The more to come. We'll continue to share feedback we hear. I mean, we're committed to, collecting additional feedback now, but in the fall, as we look to refresh the plan and move forward. And with that, I'm going to pass it to Dr. Carver.
All right. Dr. Shereen Carver, Executive Director of Special Services, and I am honored tonight and appreciate the opportunity to speak on behalf of Priority Area 1, which is student well-being, which includes 4 different strategy areas. And so really quick, just want to give a quick highlight for our students and teachers that are in the room, as well as our board members, and as Director Coyne always says, parents and folks listening in. So, so thinking about Priority Area 1 and student well-being, again, it has 2 goal areas. And the first goal is really focusing on making sure our students feel safe, that they have a sense of belonging. And when we think about safety, it is both physical safety, emotional safety, psychological safety. And how we go about that is really thinking deeply about these 2 different strategies. So first, thinking about how we're working in partnership with our students and our family to start thinking about strengths and our student interest. I was really pleased to hear Marcel talk about students focusing on self-discovery. So that's really that first strategy area. And then the second one is, again, thinking about school safety, including those different components, and how we're really focusing on school climate that really creates that sense of belonging for all of our students. In terms of goal 2 is really thinking about basic needs, our social, emotional, and behavioral health of our students. And so really thinking about how we're ensuring our students and families have access to basic needs and all of the supports they need across those different areas. And then also leaning in more robustly into our social emotional learning, which I often hear our teachers and our students and our school board talk about. In that area of social emotional learning, I also want to make sure that we really raise to the top that piece about making sure that our social emotional learning curriculum is responsive to our students, including their cultural backgrounds and their identities. A couple things that we just want to highlight as a priority in our strategy teams is lots of amazing work has been happening over the course of 2 years, but really just want to highlight a couple key components. So in that area of student growth goal development, we've successfully launched the implementation of our social, academic, and emotional behavior risk screener, which is called the SABRS, but I live in the world of special education, so I really try very intentionally to not use those acronyms, or at least spell them out first and then say what the acronym stands for. So we've successfully launched that SABRS. That's our ability to universally screen and think about risk in those areas of social, emotional, and behavioral health. And now we're ready for that next phase and really thinking about how we're leveraging strengths-based goal development. Again, thinking about self-discovery, interest, and passion directly tied to our mission and vision as a district. In that area of school safety, so thinking again, social, emotional safety, and physical safety, we're really pleased that we've been able to really think about our surveys. Again, we know our students are taking lots of surveys. So when we're really thinking about those surveys, what questions are we asking in order to have meaningful data? So what is the metrics? And then how are we using the insights from that data to truly drive actionable change and impact in that overall area of belonging and feeling safe for our kids? We're really pleased. Our first basic needs resource fair was highly successful. So this year we've continued with planning for our second year of that resource fair. It will happen in August. We're very, very pleased for that. But in addition to the resource fair, we're also really working really diligently to create a resource hub. And so we have a group of dedicated people coming together. It is an advisory board to develop a resource hub, again, focused on meeting basic needs of students and families in our community. We're really excited in the area of social emotional learning that we're now continuing our journey about integrated social emotional supports for our secondary students, specifically our high school students, in incorporating 4 standards into that work that happens across the curriculum. So it's integrated into their core content and into their courses. And then we're also completing a pilot. We have lots of teachers accessing those materials, and we're really looking at what was the impact, what was the usage of that, and what is the feasibility for scaling. One other piece we were asked to give just a quick spotlight, and I previewed this in the last slide. We're really, really pleased about the SABRS universal screening implementation. We're checking that off as complete. And now we're moving into phase 2, which is really more around that personalized strengths-based goal setting. We have a strong foundation and commitment in the district around strengths-based approaches and asset-based thinking. And now we're looking at how do we broaden that to more universal applications and using that as a way for personalized roadmaps for success. With that, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Dr. Bailey, who's going to talk to us about priority area 2 and academic opportunities.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Look at us. Priority tied again. Priority 2 on academic opportunities has been hard at work in support of increasing student achievement of meaningful milestones and ensuring that students have equitable access to resources and pathways that support their individual student post secondary goals. Student outcomes are trending in the direction we want, with 3rd grade reading and successful passage of all 9th grade classes, both showing measurable growth. The newly launched tiered teams student achievement tracking tool allows leaders to live time insight on how students are doing before those grades become final and can intercede as appropriate. That common course guide, which we talked about earlier tonight, is a place for course subjects to support the goal that the same class is offered in the same grades and earns the same types of credits across the system. High school and beyond teacher-led lessons are being piloted and now include lessons specifically for middle school students. The new pathway that is launching next year is aerospace manufacturing, which will be at Liberty and will be open to district students through the WANIC program. Our spotlight is on Universal Design for Learning, and specifically the IGNITE program. This program supports teachers and teams of teachers to dig in and explore the elements of Universal Design for Learning, how these students can be in play every day in their classrooms and create many access points to the content, to design with learner variability in mind, and to plan for each and every student. This year, there are 64 teachers participating, and these teachers have become the lab classrooms for other teachers to observe and learn from. Next year, we'll have 79 teachers already registered, and as UDL becomes more visible in the system, more students will learn in classrooms where what makes them unique is celebrated. When teachers are planning with multiple means of engagement, designing lessons with multiple means of representation, and creating opportunities for students to have multiple means of expression, the student will be following the CAS mantra, that is, we will do this until learning has no limits. That's the team from this year.
All right, so this next steps to highlight, mentioned earlier, we're going to continue the fall engagement plan. So we're going to reach out to more groups. We're already making plans to connect with some groups, other student groups in the fall, but also buildings. And then we'll just continue to obviously monitor on June 10th. We'll have that come before you again, the next board meeting, and share more highlights of the work and potentially a sneak peek at a scorecard that was requested at one of the previous board meetings. So we're in the works with that now. With that, I'll open it up to any questions.
Okay, any questions from the board?
Sure.
Dr. Gallinger?
Slide 14.
Yeah, go back.
When you get ready to present this to us as an official monitoring report, is the plan to disaggregate this such that we know, are all students equally increasing and meeting standard or having less failing? You know what I'm asking? Like, I don't like these numbers. I want to see it by building
Okay.
and also then by subgroup.
The scorecard is currently set up with our BIPOC focus group and students served in on IAP. And that tracks through those 3 critical milestones, the 3rd grade reading, 9th grade on track, and graduation plus persisting.
I love that. I also, for the 9th grade, would want to know by building, is it equal? Because in the course of your 4 buildings, it may be where like that is not the same at each building.
Yep, we're taking that note.
I haven't pulled it apart that way, so I will be able to let you know if the suppression rules will be in place because
There's 550 kids, I would hope. that
I'm
would be
just
okay.
saying I haven't pulled it apart that way.
Any other comments? Director Taylor.
I just have, I'm just interested in Sabres. Is that screening across all levels for every student in every grade in our schools?
So we have the ability to do Sabres, and then we have the ability to do My Sabres. So the Sabres ratings are for our youngest learners who don't have that self-awareness yet in order to do their own ratings. And then we can also then compare for our older students when they do the My Sabres versus Sabres. We're able to compare the students' perceptions of where they're at in those critical areas as to how their teachers see them. So
I see. And then just follow up on that. Tell me if I'm right. I take it then with whatever data comes out of the evaluation, supports then are assigned if necessary based on the risk of.
yeah, absolutely. And so when we think about our utilization of multi-tiered systems of supports, that's exactly what our universal screeners do, is it gives us that 3 times a year, that ability to come in and collect data. It's kind of like a systems check. How are the students doing? And then we can use that data within our tiered teams to say, overall, how are our students doing? So what is the overall, are 80% or more of our students responding to our kind of core curriculum in terms of social, emotional well-being and wellness? Then those kiddos that are showing some level of risk, we can offer them tier 2 interventions. And then those kiddos that have more significant risk are getting more intensive tier 3 interventions. So that's absolutely the purpose of that.
Great. Thank you.
Of course.
Any other questions or comments? I would just say thank you so much for bringing this forward to us and letting us talk about it. I did have one question around student safety, around the student safety piece, just because that was such a big portion of our discussion at our town hall, was especially at the middle school, concerns about feeling safe at school.
Absolutely. And so that is one of those key pieces where we're really excited about having the new survey questions and our ability to, with some increased data insights. So the board has had the opportunity to look at data using different platforms such as Power BI. So we're beginning to test the capabilities of looking at the data in different ways to gain additional insights. So being able to drill down to very specific questions, including very detailed, Jason Morse leads that strategy and is really, really thinking critically about where even those key locations where kids may feel less safe. So for example, where in hallways, maybe even using the restroom, where those times of day, and we can drill down all the way to student demographic levels, building levels, and then we can be responsive. So in that piece where I talked about like how we're using that data to really drive our initiatives and make actionable improvements, and then also tying it to those pieces about who are your safe adults, how do we report those things, all of those components tie together.
So, with that, so there's more strategies behind now that we have more information, what the strategies are behind,
Exactly.
especially for students, I mean, for teachers and staff to, and other staff to be able to know, how do I deal when I start to see, students acting in unsafe ways towards each other. And I think that's a real critical piece for us, is what do you do in the midst of unsafe behavior?
Absolutely. So one of the pieces in the first year was really looking at safety plans. And so now we have this additional data, so we can go back, revise and update the safety protocols and plans kind of across the system, as well as if there's teacher development or other places where we need to, for example, we have safety cares and other things that support student de-escalation and safety. So where are those different places? And I think that increased data insights are going to drive improved action.
Okay. And so I guess I probably have questions around whether or not there would be impact to like building budgets, and whether or not these type of things might be included in our equity-based budgeting.
And looking back at our equity-based budgeting, so discipline is not a measure that gets considered in that index as it relates to what are the needs, because there's so many different variables that go into what that can mean. So noted that that's a raised question, and we can consider how we consider that as we can look at our resources.
And I think ongoing, it might be, do we need to include in that metric, well, like one of the metrics, more around the number or percentage of students in different tiers in your multi-tiered systems of support, right? So that it's so rather than it being discipline based, that it be around tiered support based.
Although the tiered system, kids don't live in, we should expect fluidity in where our students are in their attainment of certain skills and concepts. So that would be a very fluid, you know what I mean, sort of set of indices or numbers to look at. So if the number, we don't want to see a disproportionate amount of kids in tier 3, though. I mean, if we have a flipped pyramid, that would be a problem. That's a different challenge for our whole system. But as we consider the different resources for how this is now edging back to the equity-based budgeting, and we don't have the, index to sort of come back to play, but the role that we would need to consider is how we are looking at what results are happening for our students and what our different population groups are that have historically had, performance, and that we want to interrupt that cycle.
Okay. And I would just add, Director Moraldo, I think you're hitting on a key point, and some of the work that we're doing every single day in this priority and across the 4 strategies is that interconnected piece around the data and how each and every one of these strategies neatly tie together. So when we're looking at the safety related data, emotional, physical, psychological safety, how does that connect to our SABRS data? How does it connect to our multi-tiered systems of support and all the other data sources we have? And holistically, how does that create that place where our kids feel safe, welcome, and ready to go to learn? So absolutely, they all nest together. And so we're trying to leverage all of the different data in order to drive improvement across all 4 strategies.
And then I guess my final question is that moving into the fall, Marcel, as you're talking about engagement, is there room or flexibility to use our student reps to really kind of help with student engagement and student discussion around some of these topics?
There is always room for a good idea, right? Absolutely. So I think it ties to some of the larger scale, like we talk policy work, but that's another opportunity for them to engage and get student voice. So absolutely. So I'll take note of that, because I think that's a great way for them to engage with the plan as well.
Okay. Anything else for the good of the order? Okay, well, thank you so much for that presentation.
All right, thank you.
Next on the agenda is legislative matters. Now, I know a superintendent talked about several things, so I don't know, Director Taylor, if you have much more to add to that.
I don't have anything to add at this point, no.
Okay. Yeah, and I think you gave a thorough, unless you have anything to add. Pretty thorough. And yes, student reps, you may take off your badges and walk away as we talk about calendaring and future agenda topics. And Hava and Naomi, all the best to you. We will see you on graduation day. Okay, announcements and correspondence. This is one of those where I'm gonna have to read it from my laptop, aren't I? We have a few emails that were sent to the board. Is there anything else under announcements or correspondence that board members wanted to share? Hearing none. Calendar and future agenda topics. So as you see on there, there's a reminder that our June 10th board meeting, because we're going to be busy. Oh, and we did have a discussion about having an extended executive session. And so our start time will be at 7:30. I do know that you were considering whether or not you were going to be able to make that.
My business trip was canceled, so I'll be here.
Oh, well, excellent. That's good to hear. Were there any other items? Because I think we've calendared everything out. Oh, well then, we're adjourned.